1, 2, 3, 4.
And hello there, all you Stay Tuners. Welcome back to another episode of Stay Tuned Sports. How's everybody's week going so far? Mine's going pretty good. Today's Thursday, March 7th. One more day to the weekend. Got some UFC coming up Saturday or Sunday, fight night on ESPN Plus. I kind of don't like that, but that's just part of their ESPN contract deal. We'll talk a little bit about the fight card for that one. I'll do my picks for that. We're going to recap UFC 235. Some controversy stoppages with Herb Dean again. John Jones showing his dominance, I guess if you could say, once again. And so far has not tested positive for any illegal drugs. Overall, the card was pretty good, but we'll get into that probably towards the end of the episode. But before we start the show off, head over to Twitter. Follow mine, my personal one at Jimbo ST Sports. Follow the show at ST Sports Podcast, and our new co-host Shoulders is still looking for more followers. I just checked; he's up to a huge number of 6 followers. Head over, it's shoulders_bro. Head over there, tell him, say hi to him, send him tweets, pictures, whatever you want to do, make him a little excited. But to start the show off, right before he came on, it was actually our good friend King texted me. If you guys remember when Connor McGregor was training for Floyd Mayweather, he brought in a former boxer, Paulie Malignaggi. And, he's fought some good fighters, good boxers when he was fighting. He fought Miguel Cotto, Adrian Bronner, Amar Khan. He defeated Zab Judah in 2013. And then during the training with Connor, it came out, a video came out showing a sparring session between Connor and Paulie, and shows that Connor knocks him down. Clear as day. And from what I remember, Malignaggi, try to say that name 5 times real fast, came out and said, he tripped him and he would never get knocked down by an amateur, this and that. And since then, that feud's been going on for, 2-3 years now? Every now and then you see him in the news trying to call out Connor or, just attacking Connor. And for a little while there, Connor was exchanging with him, but Connor kind of stopped now. It seems like he's more focused on fighting once a year for UFC, which is another story we'll get into. But earlier today, Thursday, March 7th, it came out that Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship has signed him. He's coming out of a 2-year-long retirement from boxing to fight in this organization. And I'm not sure if it was at the press conference or right after the press conference, but once again, he tweeted out to Connor about a possible bare knuckle box match, which, let's face it, Connor's too big of a name for this organization right now to even go in. The only thing, and I was talking to King about, was the only way I could see Connor going in into this organization is to, like, when it takes off and really takes off, which I think it is, his ego will make him come here and be able to say, hey, I was the one that put Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship on the map. Just like the Forrest Griffin, Stephan Bonnar being the greatest fight in UFC history, which helped bring UFC to the mainstream. And like I said, I put it like a 0.1% chance that Connor comes to bare knuckle fighting. But on the business side of this is actually a very good move by bare knuckle fighting, as long as Malganagi doesn't flop. I mean, he is 38. I think he's 38 years old. Hasn't fought in 2 years. Yes, it is, like I say multiple times, it is a boxing sport, but it's a little bit different. By bringing in a big name in like this helps boost, I think, the credibility of this organization, of this new combat sport. Now, at the press conference, obviously they had a lot of statements, and one of the statements made by the president, David Feldman of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, said, "At this time in our company's growth, we needed to add a legitimate and well-established world champion boxer to our roster, and I believe with Paulie's abilities and personality, we've done just that." He's also going to help sell pay-per-views, just because he has that boxing pay-per-view background. I mean, you know, like I said, Miguel Cotto, he fought Amar Khan. Like, these are big names that he fought. So I think this is going to help move it into the next level. You know, you got Beck Rollins as your face of your women division. You know, you have you just signed Artem Lobov, which, kind of circling back to the whole Connor McGregor feud, this is kind of setting up as probably a second fight for Artem. Artem fights in April. David Feldman is figuring Paulie will probably be fighting it like in June sometime. Now, if they were to fight each other, I think that would be. I mean, I think that might be like the Forrest Griffin Stephan Bonnar fight. I think that would be a hell of a fight. It could be just like the first pay-per-view, Tony Lopez versus Joey Beltran. You know, that was a very entertaining fight. Yes, very bloody, but let's face it, how our society is nowadays, we love blood, we love violence. You know, I think that would be a hell of a fight to make. And I think you could possibly stack that card pretty well. You know, April doesn't have, I believe, Beck Rollins on it. So come June, if you have Artem versus Paulie, you could have Beck Rollins defend her belt. You could have Joey Beltran, who was in a way calling out Sam Shoemaker. That could be a hell of a fight. You know, there's some good potential good matchups for a June card. And that's all you really need is one really big card, good card, to get the word of mouth moving. And especially with buying it on fight.tv, I believe it is, it could be a week later and you still could buy it and watch the replay of it. So I mean, come that night, I could watch it and say it's my first time ever watching it, and it's just nuts and just awesome. And next day I call Shoulders up and say, hey, next Saturday we gotta hang out, we gotta watch this pay-per-view. It's badass, it's cool. And that's all it takes. And that's what happened with UFC when, with the Forrest Griffin fight. I mean, me personally, that's what happened. You know, I wasn't into UFC until my buddy called me that night after the first round, said, dude, I think they were on Spike at that time, put Spike TV on. You gotta watch this UFC fight. No, man, it's stupid. No, put it on. And I put it on, and I fell in love with it ever since. Now, the past couple of years, I've kind of soured on it, especially with the John Jones and even the Connor bus incident kind of soured me a little bit. But I'm getting back into it. I'm still more behind Bare Knuckle Boxing Fighting Championship than UFC, but this, like I said, I could see this type of sport really taking it off, and this was a good move by Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship by finally signing a bigger name boxer, athlete, whatever you want to call them, and they're slowly adding to that roster. They got Chris Lieben, Chris Lytle, like I said earlier, Beck Rollins. Now, I think the next step they need to do is start signing some younger, maybe not, superstar talent, but younger, known names, and bring them up. Because let's face it, if you're going to constantly sign over-the-hill, older fighters, you're not really going to last that long. You got to bring the young people in, the younger names in to make the sport last. So, we will see over next couple of years, if that's the route they go. In the next few months, definitely will be interesting to see if these moves that they're doing with signing these, Lobov, Chris Lieben, Malganagi, if they pan off, or if they pan out. One thing that is not panning out right now is a potential Connor McGregor, Donald Cerrone fight, and I'm a little upset about this, especially reading comments from Dana White and Cowboy. Now listen, before I go into this, I take Dana White's word with a grain of salt all the time, because obviously he's a promoter and he's the one that wants to get the fights that he wants, not what his fighters want or what the pay that they want. But Cowboy Cerrone always struck me as a straight arrow guy that he'll tell you like it is, how it's supposed to be, and doesn't bullshit about it, So it came out, I think it was yesterday or maybe it was earlier today, that the potential McGregor fight with Cowboy is in danger of not happening. Now, when Cowboy won his fight back in, I think January it was, right after the fight, I think it was in the post-fight conferences, that they already came up to him with a potential big name fight, and days after that, it was starting to come out that it was Connor, because of the little banter they did between each other. Cerrone saying he'll bring the Budweiser, Connor will bring the proper 12th, and then suddenly Connor went quiet, and they were shooting for an April fight date for the two of them, and Connor came out and said he wouldn't be fight ready for that one. So then they started trying to set up for a July date for the two of them. Now it's coming out that the reason why Connor is holding out is because they want this fight to be a co-main event, and Connor wants to be a main event. Donald Cerrone was quoted in saying Connor won't fight unless it's a main event. I don't know if it's his ego thing or a status thing for him. I don't give a shit. I'll fight anyone, anywhere, and I stand by that all the time. You know what? I mean, what was it, 2 years ago? He fought like 6 times in 1 year. He's always been ready to fight. And Connor still Well, I mean, Cowboy said the best with his next statement. I guess he's a prima donna and only takes main event spots. Well, if that's the case, then you might not be fighting. You'll probably fight once every 2 years. And for a fighter, listen, I'm a Connor fan. I love Connor. And I'll always back him. But you really haven't done too much lately. You lost to Khabib. You lost, if you want to count the Floyd Mayweather fight, fine. I don't. But you lost to him. You won the last Diaz fight. You lost before that. So you're 1-3, you're 1-4 your last 4 or 5 fights. Most fighters that go that type of record aren't in the UFC no more. The only reason why you're around is because of the trash talk. He sells pay-per-views. And that's fine and dandy, but you're not going to sell pay-per-views if you're not fighting. Whether it's co-main event, undercard, main event. Maybe if I'm Connor, I'm telling my manager, my agent, however that goes, I'll sign to a co-main event, but I get more pay-per-view points or buys. Like some type of a bigger cut as normal for the pay-per-view than normal. And I'm disappointed because I think the lead up to this fight would be an awesome lead up. The fight itself, I think, would be awesome. Connor is the counter puncher. Donald Cerrone with his kicks. I mean, his kicks are nasty. They're just nasty. So at least Cerrone is stepping up and saying, you know what, enough's enough. Come July, he's fighting one way or another. The other statement, and this article I found on ESPN, they're aiming that if they can't get the Connor fight together, they're looking at a lightweight fight with Al La Quinta, which again I think would be another good fight and another good lead up to it because he's another good trash talker. But like Sterling said, he doesn't care who the opponent is. He would fight Brock Lesnar if they were offered. Now that would be funny to watch. But I'm just a little disappointed with Connor with this this outcome here. The video that I watched with it had Dana White being asked the questions and stuff, and he said he's waiting for the Khabib fight, which Dana White kind of, to me reading between the lines, confirmed it because they asked him, when do you think, if this fight don't go through, when do you think you would see Connor fight? And he said probably sometime in the fall, which would be November, which would be when Khabib would be allowed to come back. And if he waits that long, then he's just wasting his prime years, especially on a 1-3, 1-4 winning record the past 4 or 5 fights. I mean, I'm still hoping the Donald Cerrone fight happens, but it's not looking like it. So last weekend, if you guys were on Twitter with me, I was live tweeting the UFC 235 pay-per-view. John Jones versus Anthony Smith was the main event. I didn't get to watch the Cody Garbrandt fight. I had a little bit technical problems with my Fire Stick. And I tuned in just as they were walking out of the cage. And I did see some highlights to it. And, Cody Garbrandt, he it seems like he's never had a chin. And after the fight, Pedro Munoz knew that if he could get Cody to get emotionally into it, he could catch him, and that's exactly what happened. Cody wanted to brawl, and he can't brawl. When he brawls, he gets knocked out. If you watch Cody's fight against Dominic Cruz, he was patient. Yes, he was taunting and stuff like that, but that was the right emotional, not the wrong of, all right, you hit me, then that's it. Let's go balls to the wall. Since that Cruz fight, you haven't seen that. And with, I believe it's 2 back-to-back knockouts. You know, I saw someone put on Twitter as Cody Garbrandt a flash in the pan. And, I mean, let's be honest, it's starting to look like it. Yeah, he could talk the big game, but that's half the battle. You got to be able to back it up, too. But it was a good win by Pedro. He got the KO win. Curious to see who he's going to fight next. The fight after that I did get to see was Weili Zhang versus Tisha Torres. And I really thought Tisha Torres was going to win going into it. It just looked like she had no answer for her. Zhang just did whatever she wanted. Whenever she wanted to take her down, she took her down. You know, she jabbed her. Just, I mean, it wasn't a bloodbath. Maybe a little boring, but I mean, she had to do what she did, and Weili Zhang ended up getting a decision win over Tisha Torres. And then after that fight was the controversial match and Ben Askren's debut versus Robbie Lawler. Now, I'm sure all you fight fans have seen already what happened and the controversy. And what happened was Ben Askren submitted Robbie Lawler with I think they were calling it a bulldog choke. The fight starts off. They exchanged, punches a couple times. Askren went in for, I believe, a takedown. It was either a takedown or he got his back somehow, but then Robbie Lawler picked him up and slammed him on his head. I mean, I was kind of surprised that was legal. I thought that wasn't legal if he landed him on the crown of his head. It looked like it. Askren took an ass whooping there with punches and everything. He got busted open, and then Askren ended up being able to get him down to the ground, ended up being on the side of him and had him in a choke. And if you watch the video, Robbie Lawler's arm is still kind of wrapped around the back of Askren's neck, and when he went to bring it down, I guess, to maybe support himself or whatever, his arm did look limp when it came down. It just was limp. Herb Dean kind of jumped in. You could see him touch Askren. You could see Askren release a little tension a little bit as Herb was trying to get confirmation that Lawler was out. Ends up breaking the choke, caused the fight, and Robbie Lawler was wide awake. A lot of boos. I know Joe Rogan was emotional, whatever you want to say about it. Dana White said it was a bad stoppage. And before I give my opinion about if it was or wasn't, my hat's off to Robbie Lawler, because came out, I think it was Tuesday, a video of once Ben Askren stood up and walked away, the interaction between Robbie Lawler and Herb Dean. And obviously Robbie Lawler was upset and said, "Herb, what the hell was that shit?" And Herb was honest. I mean, I guess in a way he felt he did make a bad decision. He told Robbie Lawler, "I'm sorry, man. I saw your arm go limp." Robbie Lawler said, "I gave you a thumbs up." And if you watch the real-time video, I didn't see no thumbs. All I saw was a limp arm. I thought Herb made the right call. But even after they had that little exchange there, they were getting ready to call the scorecard, and Robbie Lawler yelled all the way over to the other ring back to Herb that he hasn't lost any respect for him or any feelings towards his reffing ability. Again, this is the type of fighter that you need in the UFC to stop this WWE type shit that goes on outside of the match. You know, like I said earlier, I'm a Connor fan, but how he acted with the bus incident, how Khabib acted after beating Connor, that shit's gotta stop. That stuff is gonna ruin that sport. Well, not the sport, ruin that company. And before they know it, Bellator is gonna be above them. One championship is gonna be above them. If they keep going down this road, they need more fighters like Robbie Lawler. Now, Ben Askren, when he was being interviewed, you know, post-fight, I understand he wants to act like the villain, you know, wants to be the villain for these fights, which is fine. You know, that's how you're going to sell pay-per-views is by acting that way. But I don't know, maybe it's just because I already had a sour taste in my mouth about him. I didn't like how he conducted himself with you know, everybody asking about the Herb Dean. Does he think the stoppage was right? And then now even him posting videos of him squashing watermelons. Listen, a head is not as soft as a watermelon. A head is stronger than a watermelon. Like, come on, dude. Like, shut up. Now, with that being said, though, I would... Well, before the Tyrone Woodley fight, I forget who I was tweeting back and forth with. You know, we asked each other who should Askren fight next. And I said, you know what? I said, I think Askren should fight either Kobe, because he's looking for a big fight. I don't think Askren deserves a title shot yet, just because he just got in. It's a controversial stoppage. Now, I wouldn't do the rematch. Everybody wants the rematch because of it. Again, just because I don't think it was... I think it was the right call. I think it was the right stoppage. But I think now, with Usman defeating Tyrone Woodley and being the new champ, I think that's the fight you gotta make. Just because of all the heat that both of them have towards each other right now, with Askren and Usman. I mean, there's the video out there already that they had to be separated back in the hotel room, or the hotel hallway during the one press conference. The Twitter beef between each other for all these months. And, you know, Askren is a big name. You always want to see how good he really was. You know, he was a dominant champion in Bellator. He dominated the 2-3 fights he did in one championship. And obviously UFC is the major leagues of everything. You know, let's see how he does. And watching the Usman fight, moving on to that fight now, I mean, that was brutal to watch. I mean, Tyrone looked so flat, so, I don't want to say disinterested, but just not there. Like, he looked mentally broke. Like, he had a game plan maybe going in, tried it once, and he didn't know what to do. And Joe Rogan, it was either Joe Rogan or one of the other commentators did make the statement, Tyrone likes to basically lay and pray, likes to do a boring type fight, and he couldn't do it against Usman. Usman had an answer for everything that Woodley threw at him. I mean, I was very impressed with Usman. I only picked him to win because Woodley hasn't fought in a while, and that may be why Woodley lost. Now, again, everybody's saying that should be an automatic rematch. I hate this. I hate automatic rematches unless it's a blatant controversial win slash loss, or it's such a fight of the night decision win by a point. That's what a rematch should be. An automatic rematch should be. And before you guys say, well, you just said it about the controversial and Asgard and Robbie Lawler shouldn't have the automatic, or should have the automatic rematch. That wasn't, to me, controversial because it was the right stoppage. So I don't think Willie deserves the automatic rematch. I think if you want to pin him against the number 2 guy or number 3 guy, all right, fine. I'm okay with that. I mean, he shouldn't get dropped down to a top 10 guy or something like that. And then the main event came on, Jon Jones versus Anthony Smith. And typical, Jon Jones fight, until they start finding some good talent in the light heavyweight division. Jones just picked Anthony Smith apart. Sorry. But kudos to Anthony Smith. He took a legal shot to the head that he could have told the doctor, I can't go on. Would have got the win, would have got the belt, but he told the doctor, no, I'm good, I could keep going. And I think that was like 3rd or 4th round. So he already knew he was down, he was already losing. And for him to step up and say, no, I'm going to fight through this. He lasted all 5 rounds, took Jon Jones' best shots, landed a few of his own. But in the end, Jones, was victorious. 5 rounds to 0. He did have a 2-point deduction, though, which I was very surprised because very rarely you see that, 2-point deduction. I mean, definitely if you have a legal shot, it's got to be a 1 point. It's got to be some type of point deduction. So, curious to see what's going to happen next with Jon Jones. I don't know who he would fight in the light heavyweight division. I did see Junior Dos Santos say he wouldn't mind fighting Jon Jones in the heavyweight division the first time. You see what I did there? I did a segue into the UFC Fight Night this weekend. The main event is Junior Dos Santos versus Derek Lewis. That should be a good fight. I like Derek Lewis. Just the way he acts. I mean, come on, he took his shorts off, and when Joe Rogan asked him, why'd you take your shorts off? My balls are hot. But Junior Dos Santos ain't no slump either. So I mean that could be a good fight. I'm just hoping it's not another Derek Lewis versus who's that one fighter a couple fights ago where there was like 5 punches thrown the whole fight. I forget his name, but I don't think it's going to be bad like that. I think it could be. I think it could get to that point if it gets to the 3rd round, just because I think both of them are going to be throwing haymakers. But with that fight, I'm still going to go with Derek Lewis. Not saying Santos is over the hill and done, but he's starting to get up there now. I think the championship window for him closed a year or 2 ago, and I think Derek Lewis still has a chance at a championship fight at least. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm definitely going to go with Derek Lewis for that fight. I'll be honest, some of these names I'm not too sure who they are, so I'm not going to pick them. I'm going to try to watch it and live tweet if I can. But the other fight I will pick is Tim Boesch versus Amari Akhmadov. I'm going with Tim Boesch just because he fights out of an area 45 minutes from me. Gotta go with the Pennsylvania boy, the hillbilly. But, so, I believe that's going to be it for us this week. Well, for me this week. We will be back tomorrow night with Shoulders. A lot of football talk, baseball talk. We already have our little feel-good story to talk about. We'll open up the show with that probably. So until tomorrow, guys, head over to Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at Jimbo ST Sports. Follow the show at ST Sports Podcast. And also, you can head over to bellyupsports.com. I write an article there at least once a week, sometimes twice. There's other guys there that write articles for different sports, football, baseball, golf, racing, whatever you're into. You'll probably find something there you'll like. They have some merchandise there. Go check it out. It's a cool website. And follow them on Twitter as well. So until tomorrow, this is your good friend Jimbo, signing out.